Well, I guess we'll start off with a real simple intro here, which is uh, bird is the word.
Bird is in fact the word.
Bird is the
Lord of
word.
Lord of Change is actually one of the more exciting greater demons in my mind. One of the interesting things is its 5 up, 3 up save now. This is
Mhm.
something that a lot of people have known about, sort of, but it's still a huge deal. Having that 3 up against shooting is extremely powerful, and in my mind, it's having the 5 up, 3 up, and then the ability to slot in relics and warlord traits as you please instead of having a single forced relic that you always must take
Yeah.
is for the better.
So the +2 to your casting rolls still exists for the Lord of Change, and just like before, it's a degrading statistic along with the attacks. So as you know, you do damage to my Lord of Change, it's going to be less consistent with its casts. But at that top bracket or even at that middle bracket, you're getting all of your key powers off statistically. Um,
Exactly. Even with a fairly high casting cost of many of the Tzeentchian powers, for example, Infernal Gateway being an 8, a
mhm.
+2 to cast makes that very reliable. A +1 to cast, you're still getting it off much more likely than not.
Yeah, and there's other ways to boost casts or get
Mm-hmm.
rerolls or whatever. So it's a pretty solid psychic buff. That's not all the Lord of Change does. The Greater Demons have all picked up a rerolls one aura, so they have that Captain's aura now, which I think is pretty nice because, especially with the Lord of Change, if you have bunch of squads of pinks around it, they really benefit from that rule.
So, in terms of ways to boost up your Lord of Change, first up, we got some Warlord traits.
Yes.
The two ones that there's obviously 6 Warlord traits as an option, but the
Mhm.
two ones that we've chosen to show off here are two of the better ones in my mind. There's one of them is -1 to wound from shooting, which combined with the 3 up against shooting and the potential for toughness 8 from Boon of Change
Yep.
makes this an incredibly difficult unit to shift at range. That's
Yes.
particularly important given that you'll often want to be doing your damage at close range with all of these spells.
Especially if you give him that Warp Fire Blade, which gives you 3 extra attacks at Strength 7, AP -3, and Damage 3. And the second one that we wanted to highlight is our new version of the Lorekeeper of Tzeentch Warlord trait, which this one, while Incorporeal Form is somewhat of an upgrade, but a little bit of a side grade as well in some ways, the Lorekeeper is just a pure upgrade. So that's just a +6 inches on all of the ranges for your psychic powers, with the sole exception that it isn't going to boost the aura range from the Infernal Gateway. So it's not going to make you have a 9 inch explosion, but it will increase the range of the Infernal Gateway to an 18-inch target. So,
Similarly, you'll also, one of the things that I think this is very potent on is on the new Boon of Change spell,
yeah.
because being able to, given that it's effectively a better targeted smite,
Mm-hmm.
being able to boost that from 12 inches to 18 inches suddenly means you're able to snipe a lot of units and get very precise value off of it exactly where you need.
I actually have a couple of cool ideas for how I would like to use this. One thing to keep in mind is we are allowed to, just deep strike our stuff for free now. So bringing a Lord of Change in with this power means you can snipe better angles on it if you choose to deep strike it, which I think is kind of a cool option to have.
Exactly. And it also helps with, yes, you may be giving up about a bit of survivability,
Mhm.
but that doesn't particularly matter when you're just deep striking in anyways. You're guaranteed to get off your psychic phase.
You can turn the Lord of Change into somewhat of a long range artillery piece with this particular trait. Just because a lot of shooting in the game right now has predictable and short ranges. An example of that is like Retributors have meltaguns, and there's a lot of these really powerful mid range shooting armies in the game right now. Yeah, you're not going to be able to safely outrange something like, a Tau Hammerhead, but you can against some opponents, range them out, predict where their firing lines are going to be, and then keep your Lord of Change just outside of those and still able to throw out like a smite, which I think is really cool.
Yeah, that's a very powerful tactical option that's opened up. Another thing to talk about is the new equipment that the Lord of Change has, because
Relic
that has
time.
changed.
So Why don't you start off here? Tell me about this pick here. I noticed that the Souleater Staff is on my list.
Yes. So what this is a very interesting relic that, in my mind, can be very, very dangerous. Every time you kill a model with mortal wounds on a 4-up, the Lord of Change heals a wound. You can only heal 6 per psychic phase, but that's mostly fine.
Mhm.
Where this becomes very, very nasty is if you have a Lord of Change souped up for damage dealing.
Mhm.
This is a way to take that Lord of Change that's souped up for damage and immediately convert it back into healing and survivability. While, yes, this may not be super efficient against stuff like Chaos Knights or Imperial Knights, against a army like Sisters, this is going to be absolutely devastating, very reliably getting you back those 6 wounds per phase.
And it has the psychological effect too of putting your opponents into somewhat of like this sunk cost fallacy where they're like, well, I'm putting some weapons in a Lord of Change. I need to focus this thing down or it'll heal up.
Exactly. The Rod of Sorcery has turned into a just weapon, a ranged shooting attack now.
Hmm.
It's not fantastic, but it is a very it's something that's fairly good for clearing screens and could be interesting if you're going for the plan, particularly interesting if you're going for the plan of deep strike in a Lord of Change, do your mortals, and then shoot anything that's left. If you somehow whiffed on your psychic, this gives you a bit more damage output there.
Right.
And what you're seeing is at baseline, D6 shots, strength 6, AP 1, damage 2. Good, not insane.
Yep.
However, with this relic, that's suddenly a huge upgrade. The SoulBane relic, which was previously one of the most meme relics in the Codex, I would say,
Yeah.
is now actually a serious threat. You're looking at strength 6, AP 2, damage 3, and a whopping 3d3 shots. That is actually suddenly making this Lord of Change into a ranged unit as well as a psychic caster.
Yeah. I think this is a fantastic option. Um, I can think of a lot of different ways that you can, kit out this particular unit now to do different things. If you just want to have a Lord of Change that punches your opponent in the face, this is the perfect relic. And it makes things like Overwatch really scary for your opponent.
Speaking of damage output,
Sure.
let's talk about one of the more exciting exalted traits. So,
Ooh,
this is something that people recognize, Lord of Flux. In a way, this has actually gone slightly worse than previously.
sure.
However, because now instead of just automatically dealing the extra mortal wound every time you deal a mortal wound, it's now every time you would do one or more mortal wounds to a unit with Psychic, on a 2-up, you do another one. However, where this gets interesting is in combination with the fact that the Lord of Change now is a 3 cast unit. So, sure, you're getting a less, in theory, less mortal wounds because it's on a 2-up. But then you're getting 3 casts instead of 2 casts, so that's an immediate 50% output boost to make up for this. Especially with the new Infernal Gateway as well, this becomes very, very vicious. Infernal Gateway splashing out from the unit instead of the model means the affected unit instead of the affected model means that now you're very reliably going to hit quite a few units with your gateway.
Mhm.
And this being able to deal an extra mortal to all of them means is a huge output boost on that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Like we mentioned, with exalted traits, they've kind of, I guess, changed a little bit from where they were before. They're no longer a pre-game like 1 CP upgrade deal. They're you pay points for it.
Mhm.
And I think Lord of Flux is a really nice upgrade to put on there, especially like we said, if you're going with that extra 6 inch range on your casts and you're going for more like angles of fire and you're playing kind of cagey with your Lord of Change, this is just going to make you snipe a little bit harder, which is like in itself a good worthy use of your points. But if you're really just trying to bomb them and you're trying to land those really big gateways and get in their face, this is still
Mhm.
a great pick. Just being able to put out more damage, remove more models, and it synergizes obviously super well with things like the Souleater Staff, um,
Mhm.
just to amp up those mortal wounds.
If your plan is to deep strike in with the Lord of Change and then absolutely obliterate a flank with mortal wounds, this is an excellent pick for that.
Yeah. and you don't have to spend 1 CP to cast an extra spell anymore. You just get to do
Yeah,
it.
you just get 3 casts. It's
You
amazing.
just get to do it. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's going to save you a CP a turn, and I'm really excited to give this model a try on the tabletop. One thing we were talking about is just kind of a fun idea, a thought experiment I've been wanting to try out myself. Is once we get all the rules and the book is out, I want to try running a list with a Lord of Change with that -1 to wound warlord trait. Um, and I want to run that alongside Be'lakor and then a Dreadblade Worthy Offerings Knight Despoiler. And I think that would just be a really fun 3 unit, monster mash. I mean, that's so big and stompy, and you just have 3 targets that your opponent absolutely does not want to waste their time shooting.
Not,
So
it's just nothing is good to shoot at in that against that list.
yeah, and
You
obviously,
don't have good targets.
yeah, and obviously with like the blessings of the Dark Master on the big knight, I can make it just. I just like what do I shoot at? The no rerolls, the no rerolls, or the -1 to wound. uh, good opponent, good idea to force on your opponents. I mean, some lists will be able to handle that better than others, but yeah, I still feel like that's just an egregious amount of pressure you put on your opponent right away. Choose who you want to mess you up this game because one of them gets to.
Even in pure demons, you can do very similar things
Yeah,
with
that's true.
Be'lakor, Kairos, Lord of Change, Be'lakor, Lord of Change, Keepers, whatever. There's
Yep.
various options that you have, and you can just make 3 really annoying to kill monsters. Yes, you can maybe take out one of them at range, but then the other 2 are getting to you.
You're right, and I like that a lot about yeah. There's examples of you could come up with a theoretical army that does things like kill Be'lakor decently well, right? But does it kill Be'lakor and then like 2 keepers of secrets that are about to smash into it next turn very well? Probably not as well. It can't deal with all of the problems. So I like that multiple threat overload that we can very much do with these greater demons. Um, so with that, thank you for coming today, Corkin. We really do appreciate the constant contributions. This has been a great league season so far, and I'm excited to see what we get throughout the rest of the week.